The Bus is a poem by the Marathi Indian poet ARUN KOLATKAR. It was published in 1976 in the collection Jejuri. The collection tells the story of the author's 1963 journey to the famous Hindu temple of Khandoba in the Jejuri city, in Maharashtra, India. The poem doesn't follow a specific rhyme or meter. It has 26 verses in 8 stanzas, and the final stanza is just a single line. It's a descriptive poem about a cramped journey on an old state transport bus to Jejuri. This narrative poem is conversational, almost like someone is telling a story. It's written in the second person, meaning the speaker says you instead of I, but really, he's talking about himself. This makes it feel like he's slightly detached, observing his own experience from a distance. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The poem starts by describing the bus ride up to Jejuri. Since it was written in 1976, the state transport bus has tarpaulin-covered windows instead of glass. As the bus moves, a strong, cold wind blows against the tarpaulin, trying to push it aside. The flaps are tightly fastened, blocking the view but not stopping the wind from forcefully whipping and slapping at the canvas. These words make the wind seem angry, almost like a person. The poet presents himself as an observer rather than the main character, and he uses these powerful verbs as personification to bring the wind to life, making it seem almost human. As the journey continues, the poet highlights a traveler's natural curiosity to look outside. But since the tarpaulin is not see-through and tied down, all the traveler can see is the noisy road rushing by. They are traveling at night, so they can only search for the first hints of dawn in the dim light from the bus. This search for sunrise suggests impatience. Maybe the traveler just wants the journey to end or is eager to reach Jejuri. However, instead of a clear view, the traveler only sees their own divided reflection in the glasses of an old man sitting nearby. This divided image represents the poet's struggle between traditional religious beliefs and modern cynicism. Even though the poem doesn't directly describe the bus moving forward, the traveler can tell they are getting closer to Jejuri. As he looks at the old man's glasses, he notices the man's caste mark, a symbol of religious identity. This contrasts the old man's deep religious faith and the younger traveler's more doubtful perspective. Then, sunlight starts to break through a tiny hole in the tarpaulin, reflecting off the old man's glasses. The poet uses action words like shoots and aims to personify how the sunlight moves, almost as if the sun itself is alive. As the bus turns, a sharp beam of sunlight suddenly lands on the driver's right temple. The poet describes this as a sawed-off sunbeam, emphasizing its sharpness and intensity. It's almost as if the sunbeam is a person, gently placing itself on the driver. Finally, the journey comes to an end. The line with your own face on either side suggests the self-reflection that comes with reaching a destination, both physically and emotionally. The final line of the poem reveals the poet's attitude toward religious traditions. The old man's head symbolizes deep-rooted beliefs, and the poet warns the traveler not to step inside it. In other words, he's telling the younger generation not to blindly accept old traditions. The old man represents the past, while the traveler represents modern youth. The older generation visits religious sites like Jejuri with devotion, but the younger generation does not feel the same connection. Now, we will thematically analyze The Bus by ARUN KOLATKAR. The speaker is stuck on a packed bus with its windows covered, unable to see the world outside. This physical experience represents his spiritual state. He knows there's something mystical out there but can't quite see it. Since there's not much else to look at, he ends up seeing his own reflection in an old man's glasses. The old man has a caste mark on his forehead, which makes the speaker wonder what it would be like to have faith. But even though he's curious, he can't fully relate to someone with such strong religious beliefs. By the end of the ride, he still can't bring himself to step inside the old man's head, meaning he can't make himself believe in the same way. His unease with the blocked windows also suggests he's uncomfortable with the idea of blindly trusting in faith. Even when beams of sunlight make their way into the bus, something that might normally symbolize insight, he sees them as dangerous, like shotgun barrels rather than comforting rays of light. In the end, he never gets that bigger perspective he was searching for. His reflection in the glasses highlights his inner conflict between doubt and curiosity about faith. Since the speaker can't see past the covered bus windows, he ends up staring at his own reflection in the old man's glasses. This could symbolize that he's seeing a future version of himself in the old man. After all, every moment on the bus is bringing him closer to old age. He describes himself as moving continually forward, toward a destination, just beyond the caste mark between the old man's forehead, suggesting that time is pushing him toward aging and, eventually, death. When slivers of sunlight break through the tarp, his thoughts shift to what comes after old age. But instead of seeing the light as something hopeful, he describes it in violent terms, as if the sunlight is a gun that shoots at the old man's glasses and resting on the driver's head like a shotgun. Thus, every sunrise is a reminder that life is moving closer to its end. Let's discuss the symbolism in the bus by ARUN. The bus can be seen as a symbol of human life in general. Its covered windows and that fast movement suggest that no one really knows where they're headed in life, only that the journey will eventually end. The speaker feels uneasy being trapped in the bus, unable to see what's happening outside. He tries to look through the front windscreen, but all he can see is the road rushing by, reminding him that he's going somewhere but without any control. As the bus moves from night into morning, the rising sun suggests that just like a day must end, so must life. The speaker feels restless and trapped inside the bus, with the windows shut tight. Since he can't see the outside world, he ends up looking at his own reflection in an old man's glasses. This situation can be seen as a metaphor for feeling stuck inside one's own thoughts, unable to connect with a bigger meaning. The speaker's discomfort with not being able to see the world around him reflects his doubt and skepticism. Unlike a religious pilgrim who might trust the journey's purpose, he's unsure. When bits of sunlight sneak past the tarp-covered windows, they could symbolize new enlightenment. But instead of feeling enlightened, the speaker finds them threatening. They remind him of gun barrels, like a sawed-off shotgun aimed at the passengers. Hope you share and subscribe for more poetry analysis.